And with my colleague Jason Holt, we're going to be talking tonight about climate change risk facing Delhi. In particular, we're going to focus on the gap between supply for publicly provided infrastructure and demand. And then we're going to talk about an area of opportunity that we've identified, which is Delhi's quick and ever-expanding economic growth. Climate trends, precipitation over the last per decade is shown to be growing at 14 millimeters per decade, and temperature is rising at 0.02 degrees Celsius per decade. During the 21st century, temperature is projected to increase. The average temperatures are expected to increase by 2 to 4 degrees Celsius, and annual precipitation by 7 to 20%. And what needs to be noted about the change in precipitation is that it's not consistent. The monsoon season that you see here, this peak in rainfall, is likely to be even more drastic, so more rainfall during those seasons. And then in certain areas of Delhi that are drought prone, precipitation will actually be decreasing. So there will be kind of greater extremes depending on location. And then in addition, the river hydrology could change due to climate impacts in other parts of the country. So the Himalayas are a natural water reservoir, basically, in the glaciers sort of hang on to water. And as glacial melt and decreased rainfall in northern India or decreased precipitation occur, this is going to change river hydrology in areas such as Delhi. So Delhi, as we pointed out, lies on the Yamuna River. This is a source of water to Delhi, but also to surrounding rural areas. So this water supply is going to be challenged, and this is in a city where water is already short. Delhi experiences a shortfall of 200 million gallons per day, and water is transported from 300 kilometers away. In addition, extreme events such as flooding and drought. Flooding particularly would impact populations along the river, and drought could stress rural areas that depend on agriculture outside the city. We've really identified poverty as being a major issue. Slum populations in Delhi, the figures range between 16% of the population to upwards of 50% and higher of the population. And this is because there are sort of officially recognized slum populations, and then there are informal and illegal settlements. Informal and illegal settlements sort of don't come under any official jurisdiction. So infrastructure often doesn't arrive to these areas of the city, and that leads people to depend on coping mechanisms, informal and privately delivered infrastructure. And thinking ahead, a lot of this particular vulnerability will be exacerbated by climate change as the rural livelihoods around Delhi are stressed. People who depend on agriculture no longer will be able to. There's going to be more migration into the city, and it's largely going to be in lower income and slum areas. The population is estimated to grow, the slum population is estimated to grow at 4.5 times the rate of the non-slum population. The other area of vulnerability that we've identified has to do with how the city is laid out, or the density on the bottom, or the way the population, it's not concentrated centrally the way you might expect in a lot of cities. There's sort of these pockets of density and pockets of high population. So this poses a real challenge to delivering infrastructure efficiently. One example is transportation. It's been very difficult to implement a successful public transportation system in Delhi. The city represents 1% of India's population, as we mentioned, but 7% of motorized vehicles. So this leads to a lot of air pollution, which finally brings us to adaptive capacity and the public sector's response to these issues. Delhi is interested in competing as a capitalist city and is, an increasingly important global city. And given this sort of rapid rate of development, their planning horizon is fairly short. In addition to that, it's largely either pushes aside or entirely ignores poor populations. So this means that the long-term planning horizon is largely being neglected, and as the demand increases due to increased population and supply becomes stressed, the need for long-term planning and better response to the most at-risk populations is going to be increasing. We've identified vulnerability as being the biggest challenge to Delhi and the biggest risk to Delhi in terms of climate change. As we explained, the growing slum population and the stress on resources due to largely influenced by hazards like climate change, it's just going to keep moving in opposite directions. And adaptive capacity it really needs to be able to respond to the sort of growing gap between supply and demand.